They thought intimidation would scare us into submission. A vest with HOA cop stitched on the front, a clipboard full of fake violations, and a smirk that screamed untouchable. But what Doug didn't know was that the moment he pointed a gun at my daughter, he crossed into a world where intimidation means nothing, because my daughter is FBI. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. My name is Sarah Mitchell. A year ago, after a bitter divorce, I moved into Oakwood Estates looking for a fresh start. The neighborhood looked beautiful at first. Trimmed lawns, brick driveways, smiling faces at the clubhouse. But the HOA was rotten at its core. The secretary, Karen Bloom, treated the HOA like her personal empire. She pushed through bizarre rules that no county had ever approved. No curtains unless they were white, no cars in the driveway after 8 p.m., even nonsense about mailbox alignment. Every violation came with a fine, $200, $500, sometimes more. I thought it was laughable until Karen escalated. One afternoon at a board meeting, she introduced Doug, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, shaved head, mirrored sunglasses. He stepped into the clubhouse wearing a black vest with big white letters, HOA cop. Karen's voice carried smug authority. This community needs enforcement. Doug is our new security officer. He'll be ensuring compliance. Murmurs rippled through the room. My jaw nearly dropped. Security? With what authority? Oakwood Estates had no registered HOA with the county. No contracts, no deputies, no legal standing. This was nothing but a power grab, and Doug loved it. He strutted around the neighborhood like a sheriff, knocking on doors, shoving violation slips into mailboxes, and threatening people with escalation. The first time he came to my house, he barked at me for leaving my recycling bin out past 6 p.m. One more time and you'll regret it, he said, tapping the patch on his vest. It wasn't just me. He painted a red X on a neighbor's driveway. He told another homeowner her roof wasn't HOA approved and fined her $1,000. None of it held legal weight, but Doug's presence, his vest, and his attitude were designed to terrify. At home, I vented to my daughter, Jessica. She had just moved back in after years away, quiet about her career, but disciplined, sharp-eyed, and calm under pressure. I didn't know all the details yet, but something about the way she listened to me made me feel like she was holding back far more than she let on. Then came the call that changed everything. I was out running errands when my phone buzzed. Jessica's voice cut through the line, urgent but steady. "Mom, there's a man pointing a gun at me." I froze. My chest tightened as her words sank in. Doug. It had to be Doug. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about bogus HOA fines anymore. This was about survival. When I raced back toward Oakwood Estates, the sound of Jessica's words echoed like a gunshot in my skull. "Mom, there's a man pointing a gun at me." By the time my tires screeched onto our street, the scene was chaos. Neighbors crowded their porches, phones raised, whispers and gasps rippling like static. And there he was, Doug, vest stretched tight across his chest, the words HOA cop stitched on with laughable boldness. He paced our front lawn with a pistol in hand, sweat gleaming on his temple. My daughter stood on the porch, calm, almost too calm. Jessica's eyes were locked on him with the cold precision of a hawk. Doug barked out, his voice trembling between rage and fear. "This community needs order. You Mitchells think you're above the rules. Not anymore. I'll make you the example." Before I could shout, Doug lifted the pistol skyward and fired. The blast split the afternoon air. Mothers screamed. Someone dropped to their knees behind a minivan, and the sharp smell of gunpowder burned my nostrils. Jessica didn't flinch. Her voice sliced through the panic. That was a threat, and threats have consequences. In a flash, she moved. Faster than most could register, she drew her own weapon, stepped off the porch, and fired one precise round. Doug's scream ripped through the neighborhood as he crumpled to the concrete, clutching his leg. His gun clattered uselessly across the driveway. Gasps and cries filled the air. "Oh my God!" someone shrieked. "She shot him!" Another voice muttered. "No, she saved us." Jessica advanced, calm and deliberate, weapon still trained on him. Doug writhed, cursing, trying to sit up, but her boot pinned his shoulder easily. That's when she reached into her pocket and pulled out a black leather badge wallet. With a single snap, the gold letters caught the sun. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," Jessica said, her voice level, cutting through the crowd like a blade. "Tactical commander. And this man just committed felony impersonation and reckless endangerment under state and federal law." The crowd fell silent. Phones zoomed closer. Even Sandra, the board's secretary, who had proudly appointed Doug her so-called HOA cop, staggered backward, her face ghost white. I staggered closer, still trying to process what I just witnessed. Neighbors whispered in disbelief. "She's FBI? No wonder she didn't even blink." Doug groaned, still clutching his bloody leg. This is illegal. You can't shoot me. Jessica's eyes narrowed. She held the badge just inches from his face. You impersonated an officer. You discharged a firearm in a residential neighborhood. You threatened a civilian. Congratulations, Doug. That's 2 federal felonies and a state weapons charge. And all of it, she gestured toward the sea of cameras recording, is on video. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The wail of approaching sirens rose in the distance. Jessica didn't flinch, didn't move. She kept her weapon steady and her badge shining as Doug squirmed under the weight of his own humiliation. And for the first time, the neighborhood understood. This wasn't just my daughter. This was the FBI. The flashing red and blue lights painted the street in chaos as deputies swarmed in. Neighbors stayed back but held their phones high, catching every angle. Doug, writhing on the concrete, clutched his leg and tried to bark excuses, but Jessica's badge left no room for doubt. The deputies secured Doug in cuffs, his fake HOA cop vest now a pathetic joke under the flashing lights. Federal charges, Jessica told them flatly, her voice sharp as steel. Impersonating an officer, unlawful discharge of a firearm, reckless endangerment. He doesn't walk away from this. Doug spat back, I was doing my job. The HOA gave me authority. Jessica stepped closer, her presence towering over him. No HOA has the power to arm citizens and call them police. That's a lie, and now you'll face the law for it. The deputies nodded grimly. One leaned down to Doug. You're lucky she only shot your leg. Any other FBI commander would have dropped you center mass. The crowd cheered at that. Neighbors who had lived under months of HOA bullying now had proof their nightmare was collapsing. But it didn't end with Doug. Sandra tried to sneak back through the crowd, but Jessica's voice cut through the noise. Deputies, stop her. She's complicit. Everyone froze as Sandra was brought forward, hands trembling. Jessica laid out the charges clearly. Fraudulent use of HOA funds, conspiracy to impersonate law enforcement, and authorization of illegal harassment. You'll be explaining every dollar and every letter you signed. Sandra's face drained white as she was cuffed, neighbors gasping at the sight. You can't do this, she shrieked. Jessica tilted her head. Watch me. The deputies loaded both Doug and Sandra into separate cruisers. The crowd roared, clapping and chanting, some even hugging each other. Years of fines, threats, and intimidation had just gone up in smoke. I felt my chest loosen for the first time since moving into Oakwood Estates. My daughter, my FBI tactical commander daughter, had dismantled their entire operation in a single afternoon. Before the cruisers pulled away, Jessica turned to the cameras still rolling and let her voice carry for everyone watching live. This is what happens when bullies pretend to be the law. They end up facing the real one. And as the sirens faded down the street, I realized something powerful. Fear might have ruled Oakwood Estates for years, but courage and justice would never be silenced.